Mark Levin here. After any presidential election, I take time to reevaluate my own financial investments. That's why I continue to invest in gold for help with my financial protection. When it comes to gold, I only trust Advantage Gold. They're a top gold company in America, and that's who I turn to for my own gold purchases. Call them now at 800-900-8000. That's 800-900-8000 for a free gold investment kit. And see if you qualify for up to $1,000 in free silver. That's 800-900-8000. And tell them Mark Levin sent you. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Mark Levin here. Good day. Welcome to the show. Our number is 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. Let's tidy up a few things that have been hanging out there over the weekend and today. First, we have some friends over at National Review. One in particular is trashing the hell out of Pam Bondi and the Department of Justice. Trashing the hell out of them for politicizing prosecutions, politicizing investigations, for which they will one day be sorry. Now, I spent a lot of time at Maine Justice. When you read the case against Mayor Adams, it is a very, truly pathetic case, and the timing is outrageous. We have protections in place, or I thought we did, where before a U.S. attorney pulls the trigger like that in a highly political case with an election, a primary on the horizon, there needs to be consultations with the Attorney General of the United States. And perhaps there were. So why are there consultations with the Attorney General of the United States? Because he or she has the final say. That's why. We even have the Office of the U.S. Attorneys at Maine Justice, the purpose of which is to help coordinate with all 93 U.S. attorneys and the Assistant Attorney General for the Criminal Division, the Deputy Attorney General of the United States, under whom the criminal activities are overseen, and then ultimately the Attorney General of the United States. And so to make the allegation, because, 9 prosecutors, both in the Southern District of New York and Maine Justice, have resigned, there are literally 90,000 employees over the Department of Justice, thousands of prosecutors and investigators. Some of these resignations, no doubt, are ethical in nature, but others are intended to draw as much attention to the arguments and the claims of the person resigning as anything else. I've seen this myself. When Attorney General Meese was the Attorney General, there was a coordinated effort by the Associate Attorney General, the head of the Criminal Division, William Weld at the time, as well as their deputies, to resign over an independent counsel matter where they felt the Attorney General himself should resign. So I've seen these sorts of things before, and I don't get sucked into them, and neither should you. A lot of this is drama. And the headlines that the Department of Justice is out of control. The Department of Justice has this. The Department of Justice has that. 99.9% of the people at the Department of Justice aren't even paying attention to what the hell's going on in the Southern District of New York. The Southern District of New York holds itself out as the premier U.S. Attorney's Office. A lot of lawyers try to get jobs there as assistant attorneys general or special assistant attorneys general or what have you. Looks good on the resume. There's a level of arrogance in the Southern District of New York that really isn't in any other district, as a matter of fact, including the Eastern District of New York. Just because they bring a case doesn't make it right, doesn't make it just, and it doesn't mean the Attorney General of the United States, who ultimately has supervision over all 93 U.S. attorneys and their offices, should ignore them. And if she believes, or if her deputy believes, and in consultation with one another, that the case brought against Mayor Adams, and they do have access to virtually all the information, then they should do something about it. And it is courageous to do something about it because, as you can see, you get these individuals who write pieces or say things who are not encumbered with all the facts. There's no way they are. Unless, of course, the U.S. Attorney's Office is leaking to them. One would hope they're not. And so it's a very fair call, if that's the conclusion that's reached by the hierarchy at the Department of Justice. And there's many lawyers who think it's a fair call, including the lawyers who represented Governor Bob McDonnell, who looked at it, including many other lawyers, including me. I'm no special pleader for Mayor Adams. I think he's a failure, to be perfectly honest with you. Maybe he's gotten better over time because he has seen the disaster of his more left-of-center policies. I don't much care. But I call him as I see him. It's that simple. And to jump in and make the assertion with little more than looking at public events, the way it's being made, and not once, not twice, but repeatedly, as if it's a fact because you happen to declare it, is really pretty damn outrageous. That's number one. Number two, the Department of Justice is supposed to do justice. When the prior regime at the Department of Justice was conducting itself in a way in which it was bringing these outrageous cases against the former president and then the candidate for the presidency, absolutely, unbelievably unprecedented, things we've never seen before. When the Attorney General makes an unconstitutional appointment, which two prior Attorneys General, including my former Attorney General, Ed Meese, says it's black and white that he absolutely violated the Appointments Clause, that raises serious questions, does it not? When a special counsel is appointed to investigate a political opponent, that's not the purpose of a special counsel. The purpose of a special counsel is to investigate within the family, within the House, the theory being that a U.S. Attorney's Office appointed by that administration cannot do an equal and just job of conducting an investigation. Whether you believe that or not is not the point. You don't then use that process at the Department of Justice, turn it on its head, and go after, say, Donald Trump, do you? The leaks that came out of this Department of Justice and the special counsel, the abuse of various evidence rules in the courtroom, the abuse of the grand jury process, and the changing of the grand juries in midstream. I could go on and on and on. You had at least one of their prosecutors accused of threatening one of the defense lawyers with losing his potential judgeship for which he was said to be under consideration. And some of these lawyers who left eventually Donald Trump have spoken to me on and off the record. And they said the conduct of this Department of Justice was absolutely outrageous. And these aren't all individuals who march behind the Republican Party and Donald Trump. These are people who've been practicing for 30, 35 years, one of them 40 years. So what do? Do we ignore it? Do we ignore the fact that the prior regime in the Department of Justice rejected the 2000 memo? The 2000 memo. That is, the memo that the Department of Justice embraced, saying you don't indict public officials not just 60 days before an election, but the things you do and the things you say that might influence an election that are problematic. Or that you have this prosecutor who pushed the Supreme Court to the edge of the envelope on his immunity arguments. Just absolutely outrageous. And we could go on, but there's no point in going on. Is it legitimate, therefore, that Pam Bondi and the new people at the Department of Justice say, we want to look at this, we want to hold people accountable if they violated any rules or the law for sure, and we want to make sure this never happens again? Isn't that their job? To ensure that internally the Department of Justice isn't politically corrupt or motivated? Because I remember times when it was politically corrupt and motivated. I remember times when the Department of Justice went after Martin Luther King. I remember times when the Department of Justice authorized illegal wiretaps, including into Barry Goldwater's campaign. I remember the time when the Department of Justice authorized the White House to go into the Internal Revenue records of businessmen like Andrew Mellon and others who it didn't care for and didn't like. I remember the time not that long ago when Senator Ted Stevens of Alaska, God rest his soul, he died in an airplane crash in Alaska, where he's brought to trial in Washington, D.C. on corruption charges. And it was later found out that the Department of Justice, his prosecutors, withheld evidence that would have helped the defense, that would have undermined the Department of Justice's case. How about the case of Bob McDonnell, where the same Jack Smith brought a case and basically reread the bribery statute, rewrote it so broadly that a unanimous Supreme Court, 8-0, overturned it. Even though the district judge didn't, even though the appellate panel didn't, the Supreme Court said, no, that's not right. I remember a time when the former administrator of NASA, Jim Beggs, he was an executive vice president, I think, at General Dynamics. The criminal division led the charge, the public integrity section. They brought in corruption charges against him in the course of the Reagan administration. I was chief of staff. Attorney General Meese was never comfortable with this. Not because it was Beggs or the administrator of the NASA, but because he looked at the charges. He spoke to the head of the criminal division, Bill Weld, who would later go on to be governor of Massachusetts, who would later resign, stabbing Meese in the back to try and force Meese out. Weld said, no, it's a slam dunk case. The problem is 17 months later, they dropped it because they didn't have what they needed to support the charges they had brought. The Attorney General of the United States, Ed Meese, directed the head of the criminal division, William Weld, to send a letter of apology to Mr. Beggs. William Weld refused in the final days of the Meese attorney generalship. He said, look, it was brought in good faith. We made mistakes. There's nothing to apologize for. Of course, they destroyed the man's life. They broke him financially. He had to resign as the administrator of NASA, but no big deal. So one of his final acts, Ed Meese called me into his office. before he left. And he had me write, as he dictated, a personal letter of apology to Mr. Beggs. And then he had me release it to the media so they understood that what was done to him was outrageous. I read to you a few weeks ago what Robert Jackson, former Attorney General, former Associate Justice of the Supreme Court, took time off from his responsibilities as a justice to be the chief prosecutor for the United States of the Nuremberg trials. But I reminded you in 1940 what he said to a room full of federal prosecutors. He warned them, "You're the most powerful people in peacetime America, bar none. You have the power from soup to nuts to control the criminal, legal fate of a citizen. The way in which you conduct yourself, the way in which you write your briefs and the charges, the way in which you release press releases and speak to the media, the way in which you threaten individuals and talk to their friends and family to get the information out. And all through the process, helping to pick the jury, if convicted, having enormous input in the sentencing and so forth and so on. There's nobody more powerful," he said, "than a federal prosecutor." So when we have lapdogs who should know better, especially after the experiences of the last several years, who just bark out the usual pablum about how this is being politicized by dropping the case against Adams. They have it backwards, inside out, upside down. They are being politicized through their grotesque self-righteousness. And their Helen Keller tactics, refusing to look into this, are appalling. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Did you see what the Federal Reserve did literally days after President Trump's victory? It's lowered interest rates by a quarter. Do you know why it did that? It's worried about the economy. It's worried about the fact that jobs aren't being created. We're seeing all kinds of shifts in our portfolios, and it's important to stay aware. That's why I'm urging everyone to diversify and consider gold as one of your financial shields. Now, gold has weathered every kind of economic downturn throughout history. I want you to call Advantage Gold. They're the best of the best, folks. I've dealt with all of them. They're the best. They're my gold company. 1-800-900-8000. Get a free gold investment kit to see how you can get started with gold. I recommend Advantage Gold to anyone who's serious about protecting their wealth, and that's you. Call 800-900-8000 for your free gold investment kit, and you could even qualify for up to $1,000 in free silver. That's 800-900-8000. Call them now. Tell them Mark Levin sent you. You'll be very happy with them. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional. No, I didn't know we had a controversy over Iran. I'm not sure we still do, actually. Iran. Iran has killed American soldiers. It's killed American citizens. It's maimed American soldiers. It's maimed American citizens. Iran has made it clear that it has two public enemies, Israel and the United States. Iran has attempted to murder Donald Trump. We actually have individuals who've been charged with trying to assassinate Donald Trump from Iran. Iran says it wants to build nuclear weapons. They're talking about having weapons that can reach Europe and then the United States. You see that they have hypersonic missiles. That's the point of hypersonic missiles. You put a warhead on it, and then all things go to hell. So is it okay if Iran has nuclear weapons? Is that something we can actually manage? Is that a big deal? I'll be right back. The markets are volatile. They're shooting up wildly only to drop without warning. The Fed just cut rates yet again, this time by a quarter point. Why? Because the Federal Reserve is not confident the economy is strong. In fact, last month only 12,000 jobs were created, all of them in the government. That's why I'm telling you again, diversification is crucially important. And diversification with gold is what I do. And the company I use, and I've used many, the best one is Advantage Gold. Call them now at 800-900-8000 for a free gold investment kit to see how gold gold can help you diversify your investments and take advantage now. Now, gold has been helping to protect and grow wealth for people for thousands of years. And in these times, it can be more crucial than ever. When it comes to gold, I trust Advantage Gold. They're one of the top gold companies in America. They're who I turn to when I purchase gold. Call them now, 800-900-8000. Call 800-900-8000 now for a free gold investment kit to see how gold can help you with your investment portfolio, a.k.a. your bank accounts, your paycheck. And when you do, you could qualify for $1,000 in free silver. That's 800-900-8000. Folks, don't wait. Call them now, 800-900-8000, and tell them Mark Levin sent you. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional.
Mark Levin, the research arm of conservative media. Call in now, 877-381-3811.
It is the official position, repeatedly stated by our president himself, that Iran must never have nuclear weapons. Barack Obama didn't think that way. That's why we had the Obama nuclear deal. Barack Obama was effectively okay with Iran getting nukes, just not on his watch. He pushed it out a decade, but Iran was going to get nukes. Trump said no. Iran's not going to get nukes. Why? Because he's an American firster. That means if a third world Islamo-Nazi regime that keeps threatening the existence of the United States and is threatening to murder our now president, the idea that it's okay for them to have nuclear weapons, that can be managed, is not only insane, it's suicide. I can't think of a single reason, not one, why it's okay for Iran to have nuclear weapons. Well, Israel has them. Well, Israel's a democracy. But what does that have to do with Iran? We have them too. What does it have to do with Iran? Nothing. Why is it that Communist China wants Iran to have nuclear weapons? Why is it that fascistic Russia wants to have Iran to have nuclear weapons? Why is it that the inbred in North Korea wants Iran to have nuclear weapons? Why is it that the terrorists around the world want Iran to have nuclear weapons? Is it really a neocon conspiracy? Is it really hawks who love never wars who are behind the whole idea that Iran shouldn't have nuclear weapons? What does this little cabal of morons think we, the American people, are? You have parents and grandparents who fought in World War II. And if you don't, you know enough about it. We did everything we could to stop the Nazis from getting V2s because it would have changed the outcome of the war. And just in time, we defeated them, or they would have had the upper hand, big time. How many more American lives have to be lost, and how many more world wars to make it abundantly clear that these weapons in the hands of evil people are going to wind up in the death of not just thousands, but hundreds of thousands? And the Islamo-Nazi regime in Iran thinks God Almighty himself is directing them to conquer the world, to take out the Jews and the Christians and the Hindus and the Buddhists and the atheists and the gays and anybody else that they choose to. And they'll get a reward in their next life. So when you have rational people who say people like that can't get nuclear weapons, I don't care if we have an ocean between us. I don't care if we have 12,000 miles between us. Technology is now such that hypersonic missiles with nuclear warheads will hit the United States. One of them will get through, and one of them will be enough. Is that okay with you? It's not okay with me. And these Lilliputians, these mental midgets, these ideologues for ideologue's sake, who basically take up the Obama position, take up the most radical left-wing Bernie Sanders' position, and frankly, take up the position of our enemies when they say, it's okay, we can manage Iran if they manage to get nuclear weapons. No, it's not okay. Not if you have a child and a grandchild, not if you care about your country. It's not okay. I mean, what the hell? Why do we have a government? To redistribute wealth? No, to protect us from this very threat, period. So I was relieved, almost celebratory, thankful, when a number of people from the administration reached out to me today to reassure and to make it clear that the person who caused the shots in this administration is the President of the United States, and his position is unequivocal. No nukes for Iran, period. Under any circumstances, period. Why? Because he's a great leader. He's iconic. He's historic. He's not part of a little cabal of morons. And I was greatly relieved. Greatly relieved to hear that that position is also shared by the subordinates who will work for this administration, including in the Defense Department. Greatly relieved to hear from Pete Hegseth, a man who I trust. Greatly relieved. Not the little Lilliputians on the sidelines throwing the little grenades. Not real grenades, of course, verbal grenades. That's all they know. Got it. You know what's funny, Mr. Badu? People think they can intimidate me. I can't be intimidated. There's nothing to threaten me with. I've been doing this too long. I don't care if 4 billion people line up and I think my position is right. It doesn't matter to me. When an article appears, it says, oh, these senators take this position. Then there's these two guys over here. Oh, my God, I'm so worried about it. I come here and speak to multi-millions of you and tell you what I think. I am not influenced by Washington. I'm not influenced by some phony reporter. I'm not influenced by little pressure groups. I'm not influenced by all of us are getting together. And I don't care. The idea that it's okay for Iran to get nukes is insane. And yet I am relieved. I'm relieved. Of course, that was never the position of Donald Trump, because it's insane. It was never the position of Pete Hegseth. Never the position of Mike Waltz. And I'm pleased to report tonight, and I was assured by this, that it is not the position of Elbridge Colby. Is that his name? Elbridge Colby. That is not his position. Regardless of what he may have said in the past, or people are confused about it, or people know about it, or people are not confused about it. And this is important. Tulsi Gabbard had done certain things and said certain things in the past, and when she had her hearing, she rejected them. She repudiated. She said, you know what? Okay, it's not only misinterpreted, that's not my view anymore. And I said, vote her. Get her in. Trump should get who he wants. That's a big job. That's a senior position. And by the way, I was criticized for that like I give a crap. I don't. And she's there, and you know what? I couldn't be more comfortable about it. Elbridge Colby does not believe that Iran should get nukes or that it's manageable anymore. The manageable part was the controversial part. But I am assured that's not his view anymore. Okay, then I'm comfortable. It's okay. Donald Trump should get who he wants. But this whole notion of Iran getting nukes, why is that even controversial? That is, why is the position that they should not get nukes, why is that even controversial? It's not controversial. Period. Not if you want to survive, it's not. So I hold no animus toward this gentleman. I don't even know who he is. And I've been informed today of his position. And so I will not oppose his nomination. Besides, who am I? Donald Trump gets to decide, but I'm just making a point in terms of voicing my opinion. Now, those who attack Tom Cotton are loathsome. Are loathsome. Some people have served in the military. Tom Cotton has served in combat. He's a great patriot. A great patriot. He's doing more than anyone I can think of to try and take on the communist Chinese, to try and help rebuild our military, to try and help protect we the people in this country. It's a great thing that he's in the United States Senate. He went to war. He fought in wars. Others have too. Don't get me wrong. I got it. But you can't call him a chicken hawk, can you? Maybe he's worth listening to by some of the quacks out there. Some of the people in this cabal. Maybe they ought to put down their ideology, put down their radicalism, and listen. For once. I'm not a big fan of Qatar, which is a terrorist country which funded Hamas to the tune of $1.8 billion and protected their leaders. Some people are. I never will be. Qatar is also spending billions in our own country to poison our children and our grandchildren. Am I supposed to close my eyes to that, ladies and gentlemen? I don't think I will. No, I won't. Then we have some people who claim to be the real American firsters, the real MAGA, make America great again, which all started in the 80s, and Donald Trump, of course, has carried it to new heights. Make America great again. I can remember in 1984, that was our slogan with Reagan, as it is our slogan with Trump. Why? These are two great men. But you don't make America great again by allowing Iran to get nuclear weapons. You make America vulnerable again. Like under Obama, like under the Democrats. There's no rational basis whatsoever to accept such a position, and I am thrilled to learn that Mr. Colby does not accept that position. And so he should be confirmed. Because remember, my position is anybody who Donald Trump nominates should be confirmed. They should be confirmed. But if there's going to be a position that runs counter to the commander-in-chief, I feel an obligation to voice it, but I'm glad to hear there's not. I've been reassured by at least half a dozen people in the administration today, including one who's a dear, dear friend of mine. And so we'll leave it at that. Let's get it done. Let's move along. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Did you see what the Federal Reserve did literally days after President Trump's victory? It's lowered interest rates by a quarter. Do you know why it did that? It's worried about the economy. It's worried about the fact that jobs aren't being created. We're seeing all kinds of shifts in our portfolios, and it's important to stay aware. That's why I'm urging everyone to diversify and consider gold as one of your financial shields. Now, gold has weathered every kind of economic downturn throughout history. I want you to call Advantage Gold. They're the best of the best, folks. I've dealt with all of them. They're the best. They're my gold company. 1-800-900-8000. Get a free gold investment kit to see how you can get started with gold. I recommend Advantage Gold to anyone who's serious about protecting their wealth, and that's you. Call 800-900-8000 for your free gold investment kit, and you can even qualify for up to $1,000 in free silver. That's 800-900-8000. Call them now. Tell them Mark Levin sent you. You'll be very happy with them. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional. I'm watching all this claptrap condemning J.D. Vance for speaking in Munich the way that he spoke. I'm proud of J.D. Vance for speaking in Munich the way that he spoke. The morons in our media, the morons on the left, World War I and World War II were started by Germany. Marxism was born in Europe. Fascism was born in Europe. Europe is regressing. Europe, the home of the Magna Carta. Really no more. They have speech codes that would make you shiver. Whether it's on issues like abortion, what you think is a crime. What you think is a crime. If you criticize people online, you can be prosecuted criminally. Meanwhile, they have people marauding, roaming in their streets, mainly out of the Middle East, who are attacking Jews, who are brutalizing Jews. Anti-Semitism apparently is an exception to most of their laws. And J.D. Vance goes in there and he tells them to their face about free speech. And our media reports the negative reaction. 60 Minutes doesn't even know what to do. It's schizophrenic. On the one hand, you have one of their hosts interviewing prosecutors in Germany saying, yeah, basically we prosecute anything that moves. Underscoring J.D. Vance's entire point. And that's not the only country, Germany, that does it. It's not the only country. And that host didn't seem all that upset about it. She seemed inquisitive, curious. I don't remember her condemning them. The Democrat Party has much of the same leanings in this country. Truly does. So there was no better place than in Munich, in Germany, in Europe, to say what needed to be said, Mr. Producer. No better place. Cut one, go.
Well, he was standing in a country where free speech was weaponized to conduct a genocide. And he met with the head of a political party that has far-right views and some historic ties to extreme groups. The context of that was changing the tone of it. And you know that the censorship...
This is Margaret Brennan. Rubio gives her a tremendous answer, but I just want to say this to Margaret Brennan. Why do you insist every Sunday on being an idiot? On being uninformed and uneducated? The idea that the Nazi regime rose because of free speech is so sickeningly stupid, so unbelievable that she should resign. She should resign. But of course, there's no accountability in the American media, none whatsoever. And if she won't resign, she should be fired. They didn't weaponize free speech for genocide. What kind of a stupid-ass comment is this? It's frighteningly stupid. Why is it that Brennan is always anti-American and anti-Trump? Why is that? Is that media? Is that journalism? What is that? It's crazy. I told you these Sunday shows suck. You know, George Orwell was in many ways a leftist, which was kind of odd when you think about it. And yet he was, he read von Mises, an Austrian school, I should say, not Australian. An Austrian libertarian. He came to America, escaped during the war to the United States. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have a hell of a lot more. I'll be right back. This segment of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by Pure Talk. Pure Talk offers great coverage and can save your family money on your wireless bill every single month. Go to puretalk.com to find the plan that's right for you. Thank you again for listening, and thank you so much for this sponsorship, Pure Talk.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811, the Daily Signal. Who are these leftist groups suing to block Trump's reform? So far, 74 federal lawsuits. So it's all a strategy. It's all a conspiracy. And they're bringing them in a handful of courtrooms in the most radical cities in the nation. And this is the party that keeps talking about democracy, which, of course, they detest. Tyler O'Neill, senior editor at the Daily Signal. President Trump has entered Washington like a bull in a china shop, shattering the Mandarin norms of the administrative state in order to undermine the deep state, but the bureaucrats are fighting back. A bevy of leftist organizations, mostly unions and woke pressure groups, have proved themselves deep state allies by filing lawsuits to block Trump's orders, and I might add these Democrat attorneys general. And some have convinced federal judges to issue nationwide injunctions purporting to tie Trump's hands. On Monday, 6 judges blocked his policies following 9 orders in the previous 2 weeks. Judges have ordered the administration to halt its freeze on federal spending, to rehire a special counsel, to actually rehire somebody, to restore deleted websites, to refrain from giving the Department of Government Efficiency access to federal records, and even to engage in a granular change to reverse its move to slash to 15% the funding available for overhead National Institutes of Health research grants. So basically, a bunch of radical judges, never Trumpers and leftists, are running the executive branch. These orders raise the question of whether Trump truly is president and whether he has the authority to reform the federal government. While Trump said he will always abide by the courts, he warned that any injunction gives crooked people more time to cover up the books. And even the most activist judge can't issue an injunction unless someone brings a case, and filing lawsuits costs money. That raises the question, who are the deep state allies filing these cases in the first place? Exhibit A, the federal buyout. While many judges have granted the activists the injunction they want, one Democrat-appointed judge has refused to dignify their obstruction. On Wednesday, U.S. District Judge George O'Toole, a Clinton appointee, ruled that 4 unions, the American Federation of Government Employees, and so forth, lack standing to sue the Trump administration to block Trump's order of deferred resignation for federal employees. That's that severance pay. On January 28th, the Office of Personnel sent a memo allowing federal employees to accept what it called deferred resignation as long as they resign by February 6th. While the offer ostensibly allows bureaucrats an off-ramp if they refuse to stop working from home and return to work in the office, it may also represent a positive opening, an opening bid for bureaucrats who might otherwise seek to oppose Trump's agenda, he goes on. The union sued over the deferred resignation offer, and after temporarily blocking it, the judge ruled the unions lack standing. The AFGE represents 800,000 federal bureaucrats, and its natural interests lie with the bureaucratic status quo. The AFG has vehemently opposed Trump's reforms to weaken the administrative state, because if Trump succeeds in streamlining the federal government, making it more efficient, the AFG will be less necessary. It's part of the AFL-CIO, America's largest union. The AFL-CIO enjoyed access to the Biden White House, directed cash to the left's dark money network, particularly to shadowy nonprofits created by the for-profit company Arabella Advisors. The AFL-CIO, AFSCME, and the Service Employees International Union, or SEIU, formed part of the dark money and influence campaign that staffed and advised the Biden regime. And this influence campaign pushed the bureaucracy to champion critical race theory, gender ideology, climate alarmism, and a preference for technocratic government. Bigger and bigger, bloated, iron-fisted police state government. Most of the federal rules Americans must live by are not passed by Congress, but issued as regulations, as I've explained again and again, from one of the 438 alphabet soup agencies in the federal government, be it the AFT, the FDA, the NSA, the TSA, and so on and so forth. In 2022, for example, Congress passed 247 laws, while agencies promulgated 3,168 rules, published 80,756 pages of those rules in the Federal Register. You know, I started writing about this in Plunder and Deceit many, many years ago. I set up charts about how many laws Congress passed versus the bureaucracy, how many pages of the Federal Register. It's really unbelievable. Federal government employs about 2.4 million people, and it goes on. You might recall about 3 or 4 weeks ago, I did an entire opening monologue on all of this. All of it. And so it goes on. Democrat attorneys general have also filed lawsuits, but unions like the AFG are largely leading the charge. I don't know who's leading the charge. There's so many charges that are taking place, ladies and gentlemen. 74 lawsuits have been filed to stop Trump in front of their favorite judges and so forth. It's very obvious what's taking place here. It's called subterfuge. You might call it a legal insurrection, even though those are obviously inconsistent, but it certainly seems like something of the sort, doesn't it? Because they don't support the outcome of this election. It's that simple. But we don't care if they support the outcome of the election or not. And we think what Elon Musk is doing is great. You know, people keep getting on there and they keep attacking his team. One clown just talked about, a handful of 22-year-olds. These 22-year-olds, as he calls them, I don't know what their ages are, they're not running the show. They're conducting data analysis, developing algorithms. They're like these brilliant young people who know how to apply these technologies. But I might remind all the old bastards in Washington, D.C., of which there are many. And we've had about enough of the Bidens and the Pelosi's and the on and on. That this is the age group that goes to war. This is the age group that flies the most complicated jets. That man the most complicated submarines. This is the age group that has to outwit the communist Chinese and others when it comes to computer technology and other technologies. This is the age group that we rely on. 22, 25, 30, give or take. I just want this generation of young people to know how the Democrat Party and their media are trashing you. And it's every damn day. And while the Democrat Party relies on unelected judges, they tell us Elon Musk isn't elected. But Donald Trump is elected. And Donald Trump has appointed Elon Musk under a federal appointment process. And Donald Trump has appointed his subordinates. He is elected by all the people nationally, unlike a senator or congressman. So they go to unelected judges to undo what the president's doing, and then they claim Elon Musk isn't elected. 2.4 million bureaucrats aren't elected. None of the members of congressional staffs are elected. No judges are elected. Their clerks aren't elected. And yet it is they on the left who rely on unelected government. Not you and me. It's them. Which is why they hate Trump. We get it. We get it. Oh, yes. So the Department of Justice is under attack. We're told everything's under attack. Constitutional crisis. The Democrats live in anarchy and controversy. Fear-mongering and scaremongering. Didn't work last time. I don't think it's going to work this time. That's for sure. Senator Tim Kaine on Fox News Sunday with Shannon Bream. Cut 5, go.
Should a shutdown this time around, now that Republicans are in control, should it be a threat? Should you be guys using it as leverage?
I never use it as a threat. I don't like the fact that Donald Trump is shutting government down as we speak. You know, he says, I want to shut down.
Tell me, what part of the government did he shut down? He's trying to shut down some of the outrageous spending and some of the outrageous programs. But maybe Tim Kaine can tell us what part of the government is he shut down. What has he shut down? Nothing. Nothing. He's trying to deal with what I call the government within the government, the subterranean government. Social Security checks are still going on. Medicaid and Medicare are still functioning as they always have been. Veterans Administration is chugging along. What has he shut down? Nothing. And yet the Democrats keep threatening to shut down the entire government. Look, I don't give a damn, but I'm just making a point. That they claim to defend the people in the government, but they're prepared to shut down the government. Go ahead.
Shrink the USAID staff down to 250 people. That is a shutdown.
That's not shutting down the government. But how come he doesn't discuss what they were doing and how much money they were spending? I want to remind you again that when the pandemic hit, they didn't cry any tears for people who lost their jobs in the private sector. They didn't cry any tears for these small businesses that went broke, for the waiters and waitresses that lost their jobs. They didn't cry any tears for anybody in the private sector because the private sector doesn't give them the power that they crave. It's government. Go ahead.
Congress against the law. I don't like that, and I don't think we should be.
What's against the law? What? Which law are you talking about? How do they get away with this in these interviews? What law are you talking about, and what did he shut down? Simple follow-up. Hey, Tim Kaine, what government program was shut down? And some were, these left-wing kook programs, but tell us. And what law did he violate? And what about separation of powers? Does the President of the United States have any ability to run the executive branch? Imagine, Tim Kaine, if you couldn't run your own staff. Your pathetic, small, little staff of 22-year-olds, as they like to say. And by the way, on Capitol Hill, there's a whole lot of 22-year-olds writing legislation and pushing agendas. A whole damn bunch of them. There's a whole bunch of 25 and 26-year-old recent graduates of law schools who are clerks to Supreme Court justices. They're not practiced attorneys, experienced attorneys. They're greenies, right out of law school, clerking for hundreds of federal district court judges, hundreds of appellate judges, and all the Supreme Court justices. And they're all over Capitol Hill, as I said. I mean, they have to be all over Capitol Hill because the geriatrics up there don't know what they're doing without them. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
This country was founded on freedom. Freedom from a country that forced us to buy overpriced tea, then try blockading us when we dumped their tea into the ocean. How'd that work out? Well, it's time to throw your overpriced big wireless contract overboard, too. You don't need to pay $100 a month per person just to get a free phone. Pure Talk, my cell phone company, says no to inflated prices and gimmicks. With a qualifying plan of just $45 a month, you can choose a free iPhone 14 or a free Samsung Galaxy with qualifying plans. And yes, this is for a premium service. Unlimited talk, text, 25 gigs of data, and mobile hotspot at a fraction of the price of the big three. All on America's most dependable 5G network. Get your free iPhone 14 or Samsung Galaxy with qualifying plans by visiting puretalk.com/Levin today. Switching is easy. Again, that's puretalk.com/LEVIN to claim your free iPhone or Galaxy with a qualifying purchase from Pure Talk. America's wireless company, my wireless company. You know, these Democrats over the weekend, they've lost their minds. And so that's why people don't watch their shows anymore. That's why the Sunday shows are hemorrhaging viewers, all but mine, of course. And just to bring these propagandists on TV so they can be propagandists, to me, it's not right. You know, I told you behind this microphone, and I started out my Sunday Fox show, and as I always talk about on Blaze, I don't do what I do for ratings. I don't do what I do for glory, such as it is. I do what I do because I believe in it. If I didn't have a microphone or if there wasn't a TV camera, I'd be doing it anyway. How do I know? Because I used to, without a microphone and a TV. I haven't changed at all. And when we go through picking guests, I don't know who the highest rated guests are. You have hosts who say, okay, who really rates, who's big, and then they fight over them. And I don't do any of that. Do I do any of it on radio, Mr. Producer? No, it's got to be somebody that's it's going to provide some information or some insight or has written something that's very much worth sharing with you. It's not about all these other games and so forth. And I think these Sunday shows, but I think these news shows generally would be doing the American people a great favor if they would consider bringing on different guests. They don't need to keep bringing on Bernie Sanders or Chris Murphy. They don't need to keep bringing on Jamie Raskin. Raskin's on Face the Nation. Why? Why? Even at Psaki on Meet the Depressed. I mean, the Democrats are all over the damn place. Hakeem Jeffries on ABC's This Week. What do they contribute to the conveyance of information to the American people? They don't contribute anything. Jamie Raskin is a communist. He's an old red. I don't say that just to throw a pejorative at him. No, because he is what he is. And it is amazing to me how these people get away with this. I mean, if he'd been a Klan member, they'd say something about it, right? And they should. Well, you're communist. I mean, that's not a lot better, is it? Particularly when you look at the record. It's not. So, we keep getting these attacks now on Elon Musk, these attacks on Donald Trump, with these people saying what they're doing is unconstitutional. No, it's not. Which part of the Constitution? They never cite it. Which law? They never cite it. In fact, many of these judges don't cite it. I've been going through their opinions. What part of the Constitution are they talking about? And which law are they talking about? They're just substituting their own opinions for that of the President of the United States. And nobody elected them. And they're not supposed to do that, but they are doing it. And here's Jamie Raskin, the red, back on talking about Trump and impeachment. And let me tell you something. We better hold the House. For the last 2 years of his term, this is all they're going to be pushing. We've got to fight this. We've got to win that next election. We've got to be proactive. Cut 11. Go.
Well, first of all, the Attorney General did not cite any changes in the facts of the case. She did not cite any changes in the law.
Okay, she doesn't have to cite anything. And if you had a real journalist, they would say, well, what facts of the case are you talking about? What facts of the case are you talking about? Go ahead.
Occurred, nor did she cite any irregularities in the investigation or the prosecution.
It's all made up.
Well, then she's mimicking her boss then, who just lies as a matter of course.
But you don't know anything Raskin at all. You don't know about their decision-making process. They don't have to reveal it to you, and they didn't reveal it to you, and you wouldn't mind it. It wouldn't matter to you anyway. Again, you're a true believer. You're a commie. That's what you are. Sometimes I wish these bastards will sue me like this bastard right here. Not only would I counterclaim, not only would I never settle, ever. I'd own every damn thing he has. And I trust you, discovery for him would be excruciating. Be very painful. It would be a legal proctological exam, Mr. Producer. May I say. I've always said this about CARE, the same thing. I don't settle. I will counterclaim. I will sue them for tortious interference with my business, and I'll own every piece of that damn organization. Every bit of their fundraising information. I'll make it all public to the entire world. I'll be right back. This country was founded on freedom. Freedom from a country that forced us to buy overpriced tea, then tried blockading us when we dumped their tea into the ocean. How'd that work out? Well, it's time to throw your overpriced big wireless contract overboard, too. You don't need to pay $100 a month per person just to get a free phone. Pure Talk, my cell phone company, says no to inflated prices and gimmicks. With a qualifying plan of just $45 a month, you can choose a free iPhone 14 or a free Samsung Galaxy with qualifying plans. And yes, this is for a premium service. Unlimited talk, text, 25 gigs of data, and mobile hotspot at a fraction of the price of the big three. All on America's most dependable 5G network. Get your free iPhone 14 or Samsung Galaxy with qualifying plans by visiting puretalk.com/Levin today. Switching is easy. Again, that's puretalk.com/LEVIN to claim your free iPhone or Galaxy with a qualifying purchase from Pure Talk. America's wireless company, my wireless company.
Liberty's voice, Mark Levin. Talk with that voice now. 877-381-3811.
Red State, a very good site. Nicarama. Leticia James steps on multiple rakes in wild rant against Trump and Musk over Doge. New York Attorney General Leticia James, or Tuckus James, appeared outside a federal court in New York City last week. Talk about a lawsuit that she and other Democrat attorneys general had filed against Trump and his administration in regard to the actions of Doge and access to information. Oh, yes. James is trying to stand in the way of efforts to root out fraud, waste, and abuse, and during her remarks, she spewed a bunch of things that weren't even true. She claimed Elon Musk was a private individual who no one elected, and no one is allowed to have access to this information. She said he was not subject to any vetting and was untethered to any accountability at all. James wrongly claimed that they froze Social Security and veterans payments. She claimed it was unconstitutional and ultra vires, meaning virus, without authority. The legal concept that is beyond their powers. But she appeared to even mispronounce that. She claimed Musk, Treasury officials, and Trump is not above the law, meaning they are not above the law. English is not her best language. Gibberish is. She completely ignored that Musk was named the head of the Department of Government and Efficiency, DOJ, as part of the executive office of the president by the duly elected president. She ignored that Musk is a special government employee. That's the name, not a private citizen. She also falsely claimed he has not been vetted when indeed he has top security clearance. He likely has more vetting than the regular employees who view the information and who are also unelected. James claimed it was a violation of separation of powers and that they need consent from Congress, as though the president doesn't have a right to review his own executive branch. That's what it really gets down to, isn't it? They're trying to impair the president from doing his job and having his advisors do theirs. It's up to us to prevent him, meaning Musk, from having access to that private information, James said. They intend to interfere in the powers of the executive branch. That's the bottom line, isn't it? It isn't Musk or Trump who don't seem to understand the law. It's low IQ Leticia James. She should check with the American people who support Trump and Musk, but James doesn't much seem to care about that. Of course not. She just cares about the people who elect her radical kooks. Maybe James wants to check into why the DOJ has filed a lawsuit against her, and New York Governor Kathy Hochul, in regard to illegal immigration, while we're talking about the rule of law. She wants to talk about the rule of law with the mess that they have in New York when it comes to illegal aliens. That's precious. No, she'd rather do a theatrical performance attacking Trump and Musk. She's quite the dancer. Is she a belly dancer, Mr. Producer? Certainly has the tools. She doesn't understand, or maybe she doesn't care, that she's on the wrong side in every way. If she thinks this is raising her national profile in some good way for future office, she's sadly mistaken. I don't think she is. I think she wants to be governor at some point. I think that's what this is all about. But she's a maniac. She's a maniac, and she's also quite stupid. I don't know how she got through law school. I'm being very honest with you. I don't know how she passed the bar. I don't know how she did any of these things. Because she strikes me, just by her public statements and her quasi-illiteracy, to be a moron. That's right, I said it. She's a moron. And speaking of morons, the American Bar Association. You know, when I came out of law school, I don't think I joined them, but if I did, it was for a very truncated period of time. Juplandia, Juplandia, the American Bar Association should probably be disbarred as a group. How can an organization on the take set the rules of ethics for a profession that has long been associated with a lack of ethics? What are they talking about? Listen to this. Just a very short further note on the circular money flow of pure corruption behind Lawfare 2.0 and the judicial fight against the Trump administration's spending freezes. Few people have noted that the role of the American Bar Association as the provider of ethics guidelines followed by most states. The process to remove a federal judge is particularly difficult, requiring impeachment similar to what occurs against a president. Such a judge also faces a confirmation process to take up the role in the first place. Once in, they're difficult to remove, and I'll explain why later, which makes their ethical character extremely important. The supposed watchdog of ethics for all lawyers is essentially the American Bar Association. It is the Bar Association which sets the ethical rules for lawyers. The code of lawyers are supposed to follow to remain within professional ethical guidelines. When a lawyer's behavior is considered unethical, they're disbarred. Disbarment is actually fairly rare, but most states follow the rules set out by the ABA. While the ABA can't circumvent the impeachment process regarding federal judges, so far as I know, let's see here. Even its public statements can have a significant impact. If the ABA was calling a judge unethical, their position would be untenable. The ABA has much more influence than over prosecutors and lawyers generally. Well, it'll never do that. The ABA is run by a bunch of liberal slip-and-fall ambulance-chasing lawyers, if I say so. Several of the Democrat judges ruling against Trump's spending policies have themselves received this is the key, have themselves received USAID funding or shown that they should have recused themselves from key USAID cases. Bringing personal feelings to a case and having conflicts of interest are, of course, ethical violations of a judicial role. Judge McConnell called Trump a tyrant in 2021. He personally donated $700,000 to two Democrat senators who then recommended to Obama that he be appointed as a federal judge. Oh, nothing sleazy there, huh, Judge? These senators both refused to recuse themselves from the confirmation vote on McConnell, getting a lifetime judicial post. So he gives them $700,000. They support him for judge. They don't recuse themselves when it comes to voting for him. Pretty nice, isn't it, America? McConnell has refused to recuse himself from cases against the Trump administration. Judge Amir Hatton Mahdi Ali is a Canadian-born Biden appointee. He was president of the Soros-founded NGO. The Soros-founded NGO that received USAID funding. He has ruled that USAID funding should continue. Just one Soros organization received $260 million from USAID. Soros, in turn, has funded almost all the Democrat DAs and prosecutors engaged in Trump lawfare. All the organizations bringing lawsuits against DOJ and the audits and spending freezes, ready, have received Soros funding or USAID funding or both. Judge John Bates, who ordered the LGBTQ plus propaganda be restored to government websites, is married to Carol Rees, the founder of an NGO called Hope for Children in Ethiopia, which is funded by, can you guess, USAID. Hey, Johnny, why didn't you recuse yourself? Why didn't you reveal the connection, Johnny? What the hell kind of judge are you jerk? These are ethical violations the ABA should be interested in, but the ABA, they don't care because they're on the payroll too. Says the article. The people who set the ethical rules are paid by the people whose spending is being revealed as crooked, are also effectively in charge of whether lawyers and prosecutors have been unethical, who are then bringing cases and hearing cases which decide that the system paying them or their family members must continue. The system is so crooked, he says, that the entire ABA membership have a conflict of interest in these cases. The ABA as an organization definitely does, just as a matter of these specific judges do. What do you think about that, America? I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
This country was founded on freedom. Freedom from a country that forced us to buy overpriced tea, then try blockading us when we dumped their tea into the ocean. How'd that work out? Well, it's time to throw your overpriced big wireless contract overboard, too. You don't need to pay $100 a month per person just to get a free phone. Pure Talk, my cell phone company, says no to inflated prices and gimmicks. With a qualifying plan of just $45 a month, you can choose a free iPhone 14 or a free Samsung Galaxy with qualifying plans. And yes, this is for a premium service. Unlimited talk, text, 25 gigs of data, and mobile hotspot at a fraction of the price of the big three. All on America's most dependable 5G network. Get your free iPhone 14 or Samsung Galaxy with qualifying plans by visiting puretalk.com/Levin today. Switching is easy. Again, that's puretalk.com/LEVIN to claim your free iPhone or Galaxy with a qualifying purchase from Pure Talk. America's wireless company, my wireless company. Can I ask the mental midgets and ignoramuses at Mediaite a question? If you have a disagreement with another lawyer, an acquaintance and a friend, why is it I'm attacking them? I mean, my words are my words. My posts are my posts. I disagree with what Andy McCarthy's doing and saying about the president and the Department of Justice. Strenuously, I disagree. We both have different backgrounds and experiences when it comes to these things. And I said he's getting hysterical about it. That's an attack. An attack? I mean, what kind of childish pukes actually work for this Dan Abrams website? Now, it's not going to change the way I do what I do and say what I say. But if I wanted to really viciously attack somebody, putting Andy aside, if I really wanted, I know how to do that. I do it with the left all the time. It's not an attack, but it's a strong disagreement. You see, the problem with an organization like what I call Mediocreite is they all think alike, they all speak alike, and they all say the same thing. They all sit there in the basement in their boxer shorts or no clothes at all. They went to the Jeffrey Toobin School of Journalism. I'm sure they don't have an office. Maybe they do, but why go? And they steal everybody else's work product. Things that other people say, that other platforms have, take videos of it, and they just aggregate them and put their own headlines on them, create their own sort of counter-reality. Counter-reality. I mean, if I want to take off the gloves and put my brass knuckles on, I will. If McCarthy wants to do it, he will too. That's the way it works. But I haven't. But I disagree strongly. Is that okay? Am I allowed to? Or do I got to go along? This isn't Mediaite. That's not the way the world works. Not a bunch of lemmings like they are over there doing Dan Abrams' dirty work. Mr. Jerry Springer of TV. Everybody doesn't always have to be in agreement. At Fox or conservative talk radio or what have you. That's the strength of what we do. But it doesn't mean they're under attack. I know how to attack. And if the time is needed to attack somebody, I'll attack them, and they'll attack me, and we'll do what we do. But grow up. Just a bunch of punks. Really, just a bunch of punks. And no, the Department of Justice and Pam Bondi have not politicized the firing of Adams and politicized anything by looking into what's taken place at the Department of Justice. It needs to be done. It must be done. Seems like everybody's been on the take with USAID and the rest of the government within government, the subterranean government, and that's why the Democrats are jumping up and down like a bunch of addled drug addicts. That's right. And now threatening Donald Trump with impeachment. They're already threatening him with impeachment. I mentioned this last week. Threatening him with impeachment. Jamie, the Marxist, Raskin, who was behind all the other impeachments. Maybe he should be expelled. Why don't we ever go on offense on this stuff? Why isn't there a hearing to look into his background, to look into his conspiratorial activities in and out of government, to try and create an environment for yet another impeachment. This is the guy who is constantly trying to usurp democracy, the Electoral College. This is the guy who tried to prevent, as I recall, even George W. Bush from becoming president of the United States. He's a lousy POS. He's a good for nothing. He's also a fraud, a phony, and a freak. He's a coward. See, this is an attack right now. He won't come on the show. He won't come on the show. He won't confront me. And he won't allow me to confront him. No. Instead, he goes on, let's see, Deface the Nation. Why is he a guest on Deface the Nation? Why? Does he have something brilliant to say? No, he's a broken record. That's why he's on Deface the Nation. That's why they have the hosts that they have on these Sunday network shows. They're lousy. I'll be right back.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. The Power Hour, Hour 3. Don't forget, America. Go ahead and set it up. Our app. You go to marklevinshow.com, click on Audio Rewind at the top, and pick your favorite podcast platform. Or go to your favorite podcast platform and search Mark Levin Show and subscribe for free. And don't forget, we have our own YouTube channel. You just go to YouTube and type in the Mark Levin Show, and there you go. This group opened the book. What was that, Rich? No? Okay. OpenTheBooks.com. This organization, I don't know anything about them other than they've been very good. Private sector's learning the hard and costly way that much of the diversity, equity, and inclusion model is discriminatory and subject to expensive litigation. That is, corporations quietly altering their approach according to the Associated Press. That's hung on the Gulf of Mexico. They're hung up on that. You can't tell us to call it the Gulf of America. And I don't have to call you the Associated Press either. That's why I call you the Associated Depressed. While federal agencies have also faced a mountain of legal challenges, the Biden administration has nevertheless pressed on with the president's commitment to a whole-of-government DEI effort. HHS, with a budget surpassed only by the Pentagon, employs 294 DEI staffers at an annual cost of nearly $40 million. That doesn't even include another $30 million in payroll for 7 offices of minority health embedded within various HHS agencies. Ladies and gentlemen, we are paying for this whole radical left infrastructure. It's just incredible. This edifice, as I call it. While the roles are dedicated to DEI, related efforts have permeated through virtually every area of the department. Resulting funds pour out across the country to achieve equity and justice in public health, to black churches recruited to push vaccinations, to universities for hiring diverse researchers, to special outreach for anyone from criminals to the LGBT community to the indigenous and so forth. I mean, it's in our medical schools, ladies and gentlemen. You should ask anybody. You'd have to do it off the record. They'd have to be anonymous. When you apply to medical school, the kinds of questions they ask and the interviews that they conduct, it's all radical BS. It's all radical BS. And it's certainly going to affect and does affect the quality of health care that people receive. Hakeem Jeffries, he finally woke up. Very animated, you know. All right, 2 things you need to know. We'll put our marker down here. We already did, but just to underscore. Number 1, the Democrats are pushing hard for a government shutdown to blame Trump and Elon Musk and the Republicans. So that's coming. At least that effort's coming. That's number 1. Number 2, if they win the House, they're going to impeach Donald Trump. These are vile, evil people. They're vile, evil people. And they've abused the impeachment clause. They abused it against Trump, and they abused it in favor of Mayorkas in the Senate. These are very, very evil people. Hakeem Jeffries on ABC's This Week. Are you folks still watching these shows seriously? I mean, other than my show on Sunday night, are you watching these network Sunday shows? Cut 13, go.
How concerned are you?
Oh, that's John Carl, who's another phony fraud and freak. Go ahead.
How concerned are you that the Trump administration is trying to use the justice system to control the mayor of New York City?
So stop there. What kind of a question is this? What kind of a question is this from a so-called reporter? John Carl. Moron John, as he's known. Remember, what a complete setup for a guy like Hakeem Jeffries. Did he ever ask questions like this when they were going after Trump? About the corrupt so-called justice system? I mean, it's still going on in New York, right? Go ahead.
Very concerned, and the situation is very disturbing. Mayor Adams has a responsibility to convince the people of New York City that he will be able to continue to govern in a manner that puts their best interests first at all times, and that he's not simply taking orders from a Trump administration, a Trump Department of Justice, or Trump officials who do not have the best interests of the city of New York at heart.
Oh, that's a fantastic answer. Cut 14, go.
Because this prosecution has been suspended, which means the Justice Department can renew the prosecution at any time if they don't like what Adams is doing.
That's correct. Listen.
All right, hold on, John Carl. I mean, really, are you serious? What kind of a jackass are you? All right, go ahead.
This is not promoting law and order. It's promoting lawlessness and disorder. And that's been consistent with what we've seen from the Trump administration from the very beginning, including but not limited to pardoning.
Hey, pal, Hakeem, you don't know a damn thing about the Constitution. If you do, you despise it. You don't honor it. You don't honor the men who wrote it. Why do you play games? Why do you go through this facade? These phony lectures from you. Your entire party is corrupt. Your entire party despises the Constitution. Your entire party is power hungry. That's all you need. That's all you want. What kind of thing? I mean, it's almost as if these guys are may I say, having a wet kiss. You know what I mean, Mr. Producer? He invites the guy on. It's grotesque. No Republican goes on any of these shows and is treated with any kind of respect whatsoever. It's attack dog like this Margaret Brennan. Attack dog, attack dog, attack dog. And she's not alone. But this John Carl. You go in there, you're Hakeem Jeffries, and the nature of the question is the answer. Go ahead.
Of violent felons who attacked and brutally beat police officers and then were released back into communities all across the country.
What are you talking about, pal? That's your mayors, your city council in New York and through every major city in America. Listen how shocked he is, but can you believe this? Can you believe it? Yeah, that's right. The party of the Weather Underground, the party of the Students for Democratic Action, the party of the Black Panthers, the party of the FALN. I can go on and on and on about the radical, violent organizations and groups. On and on. Makes January 6th look like a joke. Blowing up buildings, blowing up a room in the Capitol, shooting members of Congress right on the floor of the House. And they think they're kidding. Blowing up a cafe in New York, killing a police officer. These jerks. Go ahead.
Threatening public safety. Many of these individuals.
All right, thank you and goodbye. Now, Dana Bash, who sounds like she's bashed all the time. What a joke. You know, it doesn't get lower than CNN and MSNBC. Where do you go after that, Mr. Producer? Seriously, I joke about airport radar and sonograms, but where do you go? You're like at the bottom of the barrel. That's it for the left. There's nowhere else to go. Dana Bash has Tom Homan on the Constipated News Network yesterday. Go ahead, 15, please.
If he doesn't do the things that you want him to do, would you be okay with DOJ reopening its...
See, they listen to each other. This is exactly what John Carl just said, right, Mr. Producer? Exactly what John Carter. Do you think they come up independently with these ideas? No. They socialize, they watch and listen to each other. It's a conga line. It's a chorus line. That's what it is. Of low IQ, stupid liberal Democrats. Go ahead.
Investigation into him? Should they do that?
That's out of my lane. I'm a border czar. I care about the border. So let DOJ do what they do. I care about removing public safety threats from the country.
She's not interested in that, Tom, is she? Again, the hostility, the conspiracy theories, they never treat Democrats this way, ever. And the more radical and extreme, the bigger the nut that they bring on, the more respect they treat this person with. Yeah. Let's go to Alan Orr, immigration attorney on MSLSD. I bet he's just great. Cut 17, go.
Alan, does the 14th Amendment language specifically state who can or cannot get citizenship through birthright?
It does not. And this has been clearly established by all the courts, whether they were appointed by a conservative or not. I don't understand. This is sort of a shot in the dark to try to get Congress to maybe change this or have a constitutional convention to sort of move this forward. But this is sort of a
guy. Slow down, pal. Slow down. What are you, an idiot? Let's start at the top, Mr. Producer. I got to listen slowly. Go ahead.
Alan, does the 14th Amendment language specifically state who can or cannot get citizenship through birthright?
What a clever question. First of all, it assumes there's birthright citizenship. Then they're asking Alan, who's paid to be an advocate for illegal aliens. I guess. Why else would he be there? Now, that's exactly right. In every court that's ever ruled, slow down there, buddy. The question is, does the 14th Amendment confer birthright citizenship, period? Not whether some court did it or anybody else. And the answer is 100% no. And in fact, I've gone over this so many times that some of the other lawyers out there are writing their own little op-eds for the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal using exactly the points I've made since 2017 on Fox, that I've made now twice in the last 2 months on my own show on Fox, that I've made on the Blaze, and that I've made behind this microphone. Go ahead.
This has been clearly established by all the courts, whether they were appointed by a conservative or not. I don't understand. This is sort of a shot in the dark to try to get Congress to maybe change this.
Shot in the dark. We're trying to do the right thing. If the courts won't go along, and sometimes the courts don't, look what they've been doing now, then the courts don't go along. Number one, there's nothing, zero, in the historical record, nothing in the drafting of the 14th Amendment that conveys birthright citizenship. In fact, the phrase doesn't even exist. Number two, quite the opposite. The person who drafted, the senator who drafted, specifically said it doesn't apply to aliens, and they included Native Americans, that is Indians, because at the time they weren't viewed as citizens. Even they were excluded. Number three, for decades after the adoption of the 14th Amendment, there was no interpretation of the 14th Amendment to include birthright citizenship for anybody. Number four, the court at the end of the century prior, that is prior to the last century, 1898, the court ruled that there's birthright citizenship, effectively, for the children of legal immigrants. Where did it get that from? Absolutely nowhere. But it was appalled at Congress. You know, the great Congress, we always rely on Congress for its bigoted laws against Chinese. They basically said people of Chinese ethnicity could never be citizens. Just like Dred Scott said black people could never be free. And so the court said, no, they can. Their children can be. Where did he get it from? Nowhere. No court has ruled that illegal alien children have birthright citizenship. Not one. No matter how fast that guy talks, no matter what. What is he selling toilet paper? Remember that guy, Mr. Producer, who's selling toilet paper, smug glass fast? About 10, 20 years ago, I remember. Same guy, maybe? I don't know. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
over at Breitbart. DOJ discovers they're finding all this money. $1.9 billion HUD money misplaced by Biden administration. So you know what I've heard? The Democrats are very upset about this. Actually, they could care less. I haven't heard anything. HHS spends hundreds of millions spreading DEI through the medical community, I just mentioned. Democrats very upset about it. Actually, they're all supportive of it. HHS spent over $22 billion on giveaways to illegal immigrants over the past 4 years. Wow. Democrats very worried about that. Actually, they're not. In fact, if they could, they would lock up Elon Musk and impeach Donald Trump. They're on the attack when people find these things out. Pretty sick, isn't it? Yeah, I'd say it's pretty sick. Then they run around talking about the rule of law, the Constitution. They don't care about either. They're completely out of control. Hakeem Jeffries. The Republican budget is a non-starter. Every single Democrat will oppose it. I've told you, I'm warning you now, that they're not going to support anything. They're going to vote to shut down the government and blame it on Trump and the Republicans. Why? Because they know they have the media in their back pocket, like Margaret Brennan, the loathsome Margaret Brennan, the loathsome John Carl, the loathsome Dana Bash. They're all loathsome. They belong to the loathsome society. Hakeem Jeffries, GOP budget a non-starter. Every single Democrat will oppose it. Wow. So they stick together? See how they stick together? This is in Breitbart. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries claims Sunday on ABC's This Week the Republican budget was a non-starter and would receive opposition from every Democratic lawmaker. You know, Breitbart might have wanted to take pieces of my interview with the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, because I asked him if the Democrats have ever offered some kind of bipartisan budget, have ever offered any real cuts, have ever offered anything, if they've ever just walked across the aisle and knocked on the door. He said no. They've never done that. Never. That would have been good information, don't you think, Mr. Producer? John Carl said government funding runs out in less than a month now. We've seen over the past 2 years Republicans cannot or have not been able to pass government funding without Democrat support. Some of your supporters on the outside are saying you should use as leverage the possibility of a government shutdown. Listen to them feeding the strategy to them or regurgitating it. You will need from Mike Johnson and from the Republicans to agree to go along with efforts to fund the government. Jeffries said Republicans have consistently shut down the government in the past. Be no surprise if they do just that this time around. So they're setting up the Republicans, trying to set up President Trump, trying to prevent the continuation of the Trump tax cuts. Now, let me explain something to you. Whether you be a truck driver, a bus driver, a taxi driver, Lyft, Uber, whether you be a janitor, whether you be a firefighter, a police officer, whether you be a plumber, an electrician, whether you be a delivery guy or whatever, you get dirt under your nails, you work hard, your taxes are going up 40% if the Democrats get their way. The media are going to lie to you. The Democrats are going to lie to you. Your taxes are going to skyrocket. They're going to skyrocket. Rosa DeLorio of Connecticut. Oh, my God. God was not nice to her, if you get my drift, Mr. Producer. She's our top Democrat on the Appropriations Committee. She's in a conversation with a Republican colleague in the House as well as our Republican Democrat colleagues in the Senate. We'll see how that unfolds over the next few weeks. We're going to make sure that any agreement is ultimately signed off on has to be one that meets the needs of the American people. Because we all know the Democrats are busy meeting the needs of the American people. No, they're not. They're busy making the needs of that subterranean government. Hundreds of billions of dollars overseas for all kinds of freak projects. That's right. Massive waste, fraud, and abuse. That's their infrastructure that they're funding. On behalf of the American people, of course, just like the Marxists. I'll be right back.
Some people talk about the Tea Party. We are the Tea Party. Call in now. 877-381-3811.
So we have these nudniks. All these billions are being demonstrated. Billions, hundreds of millions, billions, $500 billion. to be wasted and just spent and misspent and misdirected. And these Sunday shows don't even get into the details. They don't even get into the details. They just say, what is your view of Hakeem Jeffries? Are you going to shut down the government? These reporters have no interest in these findings. None whatsoever. Have you noticed that, America? It's absolutely shocking. The amount of money that is found to have been abused and wasted and the amount of fraud, it's incredible. And what it's doing to the Social Security program and the Medicare program, and what it's doing to these various policies and projects. And they just don't care. They're on the attack. Elon Musk reveals how many dead people are getting Social Security benefits. So in other words, somebody's taking these benefits in the name of dead people. I don't even hear this reported on. Do you? You think it's going to be part of one of these Sunday shows? No, here it is. From Right Scoop, Elon Musk revealed overnight just how many dead people are getting Social Security. And the numbers are staggering. Musk posted the numbers of people in each age group that are said, "Ooh, those little 21-year-olds are becoming very nettlesome. Very nettlesome. We got a good thing going, we Democrats. We have a good thing going with our government within a government. All these 22-year-olds are revealing all this stuff. That's impeachment worthy." He posted the numbers of people in each age group that are said to be still alive, while we don't know exactly how many people are dead. It's very easy to see that tens of millions are getting Social Security that shouldn't be, according to the Social Security database. And this is why they don't want them getting the databases, you see. These are the numbers of people in each age bucket with the death field set to false. It's incredible. Millions. If you count just the people over the age of 120, you get nearly 22 million people. I think we can assume that all of them are dead. But it gets worse. It gets worse. One person pointed out that there are far more people listed in the database than the population size. So we have a huge problem on our hands, America. Huge problem. And as Right Scoop points out, this is why Trump's audit of the federal government is absolutely necessary. We, the taxpayer, have known for decades. We're getting robbed by the centralized monstrosity that's the federal government, but we really have no idea to what extent. Well, the extent is massive. It's absolutely massive. And that's okay with the Democrats. It's perfectly fine. And that's the point. And so they go on these shows and there's no discussion of what's going on. Let's go to Jeff, St. Louis, XM Satellite. Jeff, how are you, my friend?
Mark, thanks for having me on. It's interesting you're talking about fraud and abuse. I have been on the front lines of that for years, and I wasn't thinking about saying it, but when you were mentioning Leticia James, my company, which the GAO says can even prevent 1/4 of the fraud, we were part of the winning bid for the New York Medicaid program a few years ago. And when Andrew Cuomo found out that we could prevent or stop an estimated $2 billion a year in Medicaid fraud, he cut us out of the contract.
Oh, really?
And, yes. And there have been 4 bills about us in Congress in the last decade, sponsored by the late, great Tom Coburn from Oklahoma, who was a physician and the leading anti-fraud expert. All of them killed by Big Health, even CMS, with the help of the Congressional Budget Office. And it's interesting because the same year that the GAO said we can address 1/4 of the fraud, the Congressional Budget Office scored these bills a 0, and they personally told me there's no value in prevention. Well, I started keeping
Let me slow you down there. Newt Gingrich said over the weekend on Sunday, he said the CBO is corrupt. It's filled with leftists, and you're underscoring that point.
Yes, because they scored these bills a 0, and since they did that, I started keeping score myself of the amount of fraud in Medicare and Medicaid that would not even be possible if we'd been on watch, and the number is about $43 billion now.
Mm-hmm. It's unbelievable. And the Democrats don't give a damn. The Democrats are attacking the whistleblowers. The Democrats are attacking these brilliant people who are digging into this and finding this information in a matter of weeks.
Mark,
all right.
We subcontracted to a Medicare contractor years ago to do a pilot program, and the guy who was the head of anti-fraud in CMS did everything he can to try to derail the project.
Unbelievable. Yeah, they've a vested interest in all this bloated government. Jeff, great call. I appreciate you, buddy. Ralph, Queens, New York, the great WABC. Go right ahead, please.
Hello?
Ralph? Ralph? Are you there, Ralph? Yeah, this is Frank, Ralph. Are you there, Ralph? Where are you, Ralph? Is he gone, Rich? Oh, okay. Just wanted to talk his language. All right, let's go. Let's go to Bobby. Hot Springs, Arkansas, home of the great Senator Tom Cotton, XM Satellite. Go right ahead, please.
Thanks, Mark, for taking my call. I have a question, really. Why the House doesn't come up with a bill of legislation to audit that way to get around these judges. If it's law, then the judges probably couldn't stop
Well, I can think of a couple of reasons. Number one, the Democrats won't vote for it. Number two, the Democrats will filibuster in the Senate. Number three, when they have the presidency, they won't sign it. But they shouldn't need a bill to audit. It's certainly a power that one has in the executive branch to determine if the spending and the funding are accurate or if there's fraud. You don't need Congress to tell a president that he's allowed to do that. That's part of the problem. The part of the problem is Congress is corrupt. Congress isn't all powerful. Congress is one of three branches. It would be like the president saying, I get to audit your staff, Congress. Why? Well, we want to audit it on our own. Well, I'm not letting you audit it on your own. I'm a branch of government. I'm the president. I've said no. You need my approval. It's ridiculous.
Well, I figure that way we could at least get those on record that are,
No, first of all, it's not going to happen. And secondly, we have to fight the point that a president has a right to conduct audits of the executive branch. We don't need Congress's okay. All right, my friend. Thank you very much. Let's continue, shall we? Las Vegas, Nevada, XM Satellite. Eric, go.
Hey, Mark. Greetings from Las Vegas. When are you coming out for a poker tournament?
I don't really come out for poker tournaments. When I come there, I kind of sneak in, play a little blackjack, and then, we spend time, my wife, not often enough. I love Las Vegas. Anyway, I've often flirted with doing poker. But then I watch these guys. I wouldn't be good enough. They'd cream me. Anyway, how are you, brother?
I'm good. Hey, the reason I'm calling is, so there's a thing called the Presidential Reorganization Authority that Congress can grant the president, and they have in the past. Reagan was the last one to use it. Tom Cotton, it just turns out I've been like going crazy when I found this out last week, and I was posting on everywhere trying to get people to notice. I tried to call your show many times, but it turns out Mike Lee is actually taking it up, and he's proposed a bill. I don't know if it's a bill or whatever, but it's basically it grants the president the authority to reorganize government. Says it permits the president to divide, consolidate, abolish, and create agencies of the U.S. federal government by presidential directive, subject to limited legislative...
All right, slow down. Let me tell you somebody who's actually worked in the executive branch under Reagan. I work for an agency called Action. It doesn't exist anymore. Agencies and departments are free to conduct what's called reductions in force. They already have that authority. If they can find efficiencies and so forth to do it. And in doing so, they can actually reorganize within other agencies. You don't need any more approval to do that. Unless everything's changed, and I don't think it has. These are powers that come along with the executive. And the agency I work for doesn't exist anymore because Reagan had us reduce the number of people working there by 82%. And it was reorganized out of existence. So I don't know what Mike Lee's proposing. If it's a good thing and it fills gaps, go for it. I mean, proposing legislation is like, getting a hamburger at McDonald's. Anybody can do it, but will it make a difference? If it'll make a difference, I'm all for it. But many of these powers already exist. Go right ahead.
Okay, right. Yeah, I just found it, and I just like, wow, I haven't even heard anybody talking about it. So, but I believe the president has the full, right to do what he wants in the executive.
And this
branch.
needs to come to a head now, because it is shocking if a president doesn't have the authority to manage HR within the executive branch, then we don't have a country. Then we don't have three branches of government. We don't have a president that can actually function. But keep something in mind. This is very, very important. It seems to me it only goes one way. If you have a Biden who wants to expand government, wants to hire more people, wants to create new agencies, he can do it out of whole cloth. He doesn't go to Congress and ask for help. If he wants to blow off laws that prevent him from doing what he wants to do, like open borders and immigration laws, no big deal. Just go ahead and do it. In other words, if the trajectory is towards more spending, more debt, more borrowing, bigger government, more hiring, apparently they don't need permission. They just do it. Student loans, they just do it. DACA, which is clearly unconstitutional, they just do it. That's my point. But when it comes to actually managing what's here, getting to the government within the government, saving Social Security from tens of billions of dollars in fraud and so forth and so on, all of a sudden you need Congress's approval? You don't need Congress's approval to find waste, fraud, and abuse and do something about it. That's nuts. Thank you for your call, my friend. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Lance, Kalispell, Montana, the great KJJR. How are you, Lance?
Good evening, sir. Good to speak to you again.
Thank you.
I know there are a few, how shall I say, protections offered the media through congressional law, and I was wanting your opinion on...
No. There's protections the media get through the First Amendment.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Free press is in the First Amendment. It's not congressional law. But anyway, go ahead.
But I know there are certain protections offered through congressional law, but it's to the point where maybe we should revisit and redefine.
I don't know what protections you mean that are in congressional law. We have a couple of Supreme Court decisions, New York versus Sullivan on defamation cases. We have the First Amendment. I don't know what protections Congress has created. Maybe they have. I'm just not familiar with them. But
yeah.
What do you want us to do?
Well, I think it's time that we actually define what is news that's coming.
I don't think so. I really don't trust the government, so I don't trust them to define what news is. You and I will not always be in charge of the government. In fact, the minority of the time we're in charge of the government. I can only imagine what Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer and Raskin would do. So the government's not the answer to me. Just not.
And I get that point. It'd be nice if news was defined as news and opinion was completely segregated so that people that actually...
Look, here's the bottom line. It's not that simple, but what is simple is not to continue to be ideological and push your agenda and push your opinion, because nobody's going to be perfect when they're presenting news. I think your point is people should try to be more perfect when they're presenting news, try to be as objective as possible, and that's what's missing. And that is what's missing. I mean, there's always going to be a little bit of taint of ideology, but if the goal is ideology, and I think that's the difference, that's what we have today.
Yes, sir. But
the government can't fix that, and the government won't fix it, and if the government gets involved, it'll only get worse.
Well, then I continue to thank and applaud people like you that come across the airwaves like the entire Eagles defensive line did in the Super Bowl. And
well, you're very kind. That's a hell of a line, the offensive and defensive lines. Those are big guys, though. I don't know. You're a good guy. I always appreciate you, Lance. Make sure you keep calling us. We do appreciate it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, program's over. I wish it wasn't. We can do 5 hours here. We salute our armed forces, police officers, firefighters, emergency personnel, our truckers, the men and women in Ukraine. Here, we support them. Our brothers and sisters in Israel, and you, the American people, we always support. Red-blooded Americans, thank you for making this country work, for electing Donald Trump, and being in this audience. I am very, very blessed. See you tomorrow. Take care.